Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, and today I've got what?
Dave.
So we've got a GM 911 from Tony T. His player is really interested in being an adventurer at the age of 10, and he wants to know, how does he make it happen?
If you have a GM 911 or viewer suggestion, you can send it to nerdarchy at gmail.com or head over to the forums at nerdarchy.com.
Alright, so he says that the player has come up with a really interesting backstory of why a 10-year-old would be able to become a druid at such an early age, but he wonders whether a 10-year-old could be able to handle the things that an adventurer does. Can a 10-year-old be an adventurer?
Here's what I wonder. Can a player handle playing a 10-year-old? That would be my bigger concern than the actual, would this character be an adventurer? Because if you look at Game of Thrones, Arya Stark, when she starts off that in that series, right, which
10 or 12?
Yeah, she's a tween. So it's right in that age category.
Right.
So, it just kind of happens. It's just kind of circumstances. I'm sure there's other stories with other characters that are really young as well. In your current game that you're running, my son plays a teenage adventurer,
right,
because I've personally just felt it would be easier for him to play someone that his own age than trying to role play an adult.
Right.
So, my biggest concern with this anytime is that the player respects that he's playing a child and makes sure to act like a child but not be childish.
Mm-hmm.
Or doesn't deviate into themes that are too adult for a child.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would find that offensive personally. But I don't really see it as a problem. You would adjust the stats accordingly. That character could have a good con and a good dex, but probably not a good strength. And oddly enough, technically they shouldn't have a particularly high wisdom because they lack experience. But there are other aspects of wisdom like willpower and how you perceive the world around you. So you could probably let that slide.
So I wouldn't feel there's any need to adjust stats based off of age. I would just think when it comes down to the
I'm thinking more placement than adjusting.
Okay, all right. I would just feel that when it comes down to role playing, that the player has to have that mindset of, all right, I'm 10. How is this situation going to be viewed by my character differently than my fellow adventurers? In a game I played off of the Nerdarchy table, there's a character near the end of the game. She decided she was bored with the character that she was playing, and she wanted to play someone that was kind of in this age range. And she worked the whole situation out with the DM. And my character viewed it as, okay, well, this is a child, so I have to treat her like a child, which is who my player character viewed it. So the first time that I treated her like a child, she was ready to kick my ass because she's like, that ain't gonna happen. That's not who I am. So she kind of went in a different direction than I.
She didn't really play the things she said she wanted to play.
She had the backstory to be what she was. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the Artemis and Triri type situation where he didn't experience a real childhood, so she didn't either. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I offered her, like, I had one of those magic items that was a statuette that turns into real things. Well, I put them down in front of her, so toys. You want to play toys? Yeah. And she took it as offensive because I was treating her younger than she felt. So it was a cool interaction. I really enjoyed it because I did what my character thought would happen. It's a little girl.
Right. Well, that brings up another interesting idea too. Is like, how will the other players perceive that character at the table? Like, really, like, if it's a child, so what kind of person brings a child into dangerous situations?
There is that angle to look at, and I think it's going to be an important situation for the GM DM to put them in a situation that the child can be tested and prove himself, so that he is able to say, all right, I can handle what you guys can handle. Let's do this.
That being said, I'm reading a series, and one of the characters is a child, but she's a werewolf. So you yeah, she's like this fragile child, and this gawky tween. When she's in her human form, but all of a sudden she turns into a werewolf and she's this hulking monster.
Well, the same can be said for
A druid.
the druid, who has the ability to turn into wolves and bears and things. So it is in this situation the best situation to be like, okay, well, I can turn into a creature. When that creature drops, I just revert back to child. Okay, I'm fine. Oh, I have to do it again. Rawr,
Yeah, I think it is easier because if it was a different a different type of class, it will always you're always just looking at a child and going, oh my god, what am I doing? How can I bring this to war? Like that doesn't make sense. I'm a horrible person.
There's only a couple of classes that I would really accept. This type of situation is, I would say druid, I would say barbarian, similar to like the Renshai stuff, someone who's been trained from an early age to be an implement of war.
Yeah, but even still, like psychologically, you're still looking at a child. Like, at least with the druid, when they wild shape, you can disconnect.
True.
The child, because I'm assuming like you wild shape and you're wild shaping into the adult version of that animal. Not you don't wild shape into a puppy. Like it just doesn't work, right? So you're able to, as a person, I would be able to disconnect the child from the animal.
All right. Well, what happens if, like, other than facial structure, like, look at your daughter. She's almost as tall as we are. And she's in that 10 to 12 range.
But she still looks like a child.
But imagine if, as opposed to going through the process she's been raised in a, raised in a savage tribe.
Imagine she's had a horrible life.
Well, imagine she's been raised in a savage tribe, and trained to fight. She would be more physically fit. She'd have more of a hardened outward appearance. Her muscles
right now,
will be
Ted,
stronger.
in the world, there are things called child soldiers. They have guns. They kill. They get killed. But you know what they are? They're still children. I don't care. You know what I mean? You'd be a total a-hole to go look at that and see anything other than a child. Now, it's going to raise interesting questions in your game when you encounter NPCs, how the other players interact with it. Like I said, being a druid, I feel like it's a little bit easier to disconnect because you're looking at a wolf or a bear,
right,
an eagle or whatever. But any other class, it would be really hard. Even like something that's infused with power, like a warlock or a sorcerer, you'd still like the vassal channeling the power is still this child.
You're correct. So, I'm not gonna argue too hard on that. I just
some thoughts. I know, but you guys are gonna have to decide how you deal with it in your game. It's fine. It's It's fictional. It's fantasy. I don't know how much realism you like in your game. Like all of these things are gonna kind of like come up.
So I would say, as a player, Tony T, let your player know that he's got to. We don't have the character's backstory, but he's got to have that 10-year-old mindset. He's got to have that framework, even if it's slightly elevated based off of hard events in the backstory. Tony T, as the DM, you want to, as Dave suggests, treat those situations when they encounter NPCs, including monsters. How much are they going to look down upon this 10-year-old or the fellow adventurers because they're traveling with a child? There's not a whole lot of things that would make this sense.
Also, too, like you might want to decide if there's boundaries you do not want crossed with someone playing as a child at your table too, and express them before they can happen.
So,
because we've seen immature players at our table who are like, "Yeah, you got to stop that, or leave."
Right. So I would say that I would not only decide amongst the two of you, but put out a session 0 and a social contract with your group so that everything is going to make sense, everything is going to be kosher for everyone at the table. Because if someone's like, oh, well, I was really looking to go down this dark path, but that's really creepy and messed up if they're doing it all in front of a 10-year-old.
Or yeah, or with a 10-year-old. So just some things to think about. If it's a more lighthearted, more whimsical adventure type game, then it's probably not a big deal at all. Have fun with it. You can probably find some answers in the comments as well. So while you're at it, folks, help Tony T out. Comment, like, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.